back. Tonight, 41 auto plants across 20 states are on strike. Earlier today, United Auto Workers President Shawn Fain said negotiations with GM and Stellantis were not making enough progress, so all of their parts and distribution locations were called to strike.
Crain's Detroit Business reported today the first week of the strike has cost the Big Three an estimated $1.6 billion, but the economic impact goes beyond the workers on the line as suppliers have announced hundreds of layoffs.
Joining us tonight over Zoom is Sandy Baruah, President and CEO of the Detroit Regional Chamber. Sandy, thanks for joining us today.
Good to be with you guys.
So you released a statement earlier that says the workers have earned a raise, but that, quote, there is a very real limit to what the manufacturers can agree to and still produce vehicles in Michigan and the United States. So this is something that the Big Three executives have been saying for some time. Do you agree with them in general, and what do you think that limit is?
Well, let's put it this way. Right now, the U.S. and Michigan in particular is the most expensive market for labor for vehicle production on the planet. We are at about $65 an hour compared to the transplants in southern states that are at about $55. Tesla's is about $45, and let's not even get into what China and Mexico are paying, their workers. It's a completely different ballgame. So right now, our UAW workers that work incredibly hard, they produce incredibly fantastic products, on average are making about $80,000 to $85,000 a year with profit sharing. Can that be increased? Absolutely, and we should. But if it goes too far, we can kind of kiss vehicle production goodbye in Michigan and perhaps the United States if it gets too expensive and we can't compete with our international competitors.
How much of a threat is that versus could really happen here? I mean, there's obviously a difference. I mean, do you think the automakers would give in potentially and then go in return, move these plants elsewhere?
Well, certainly none of the manufacturers, GM, Stellantis, Ford, have any intention or want to do that, right? I mean, these companies are committed to their U.S. and their Michigan presence. I mean, this is their home. But at the end of the day, these are businesses that operate on a global scale. Most people don't know in the United States, but the Chinese automotive industry is really taking over the planet. And I'm not trying to be hyperbolic about that. They are literally taking over the planet with products that are frankly very advanced, very good, and frankly really stylish. They've got the best designers on the planet from all parts of the world working on them. In fact, if anyone who's been to Europe in the last year or so know that the number of Chinese-made vehicles flooding Europe and Asia and South America is impressive. And we don't want that here, but our companies need to compete against that. It's not so much that they're competing against themselves.
So, Sandy, on the other hand, is there something to be said for the possibility of a successful UAW strike, potentially inspiring other auto workers, at least within the U.S., to organize and potentially lift up everybody in the industry? Or does that not matter with countries like China?
Yeah, that's a great point. So first of all, I would say that the UAW has been spectacularly unsuccessful over the last 20, 25 years organizing these transplant sites. Places like Honda, Toyota, Kia, Hyundai that operate in other states other than Michigan. Spectacularly unsuccessful. No one sees anything that's going to change that dynamic. But even if they did, then that just makes the U.S. just all that more uncompetitive. And again, a lot of these UAW, well, not a lot, on average, they're making $80,000 a year plus with profit sharing. Should that be increased? Yeah, let's do that. But, the question is how much, and can they go to a 4-day work week and get 5 days of pay? That's just not a possibility.
Crain's is estimating the cost is $1.6 billion so far. But what about the way it's impacting these smaller suppliers?
So every job at an OEM, a Ford, a Chrysler, Stellantis, impacts 7 to 10 other jobs, not just in the supply chain for automotive, but restaurants and bars and convenience stores, you name it, right? I mean, the automotive industry globally has the most impact than any other industry on the planet. So everything from your local barkeep to your local sales clerk to your local, server at a restaurant is going to be impacted. And the last thing I want to make sure is people know that the UAW strike is disproportionately impacting Michigan. Michigan has 14 of the roughly, 40 or 50 sites total that have already been struck. We have a disproportionate negative economic impact.
Well, speaking of things happening in Michigan, we want to switch gears for a moment, Sandy, because we know the regional chamber has been busy. You guys just put out a study that said quite a few young people, around 2 out of 3 in Michigan, want to leave the state. So tell us about that, and what do you think is behind it?
Well, it was the Detroit Regional Chamber working with business leaders from Michigan, and we commissioned a poll from the Glenn Gariff Group. And we found that roughly a third of young Michiganders, 18 to 29, are either actively considering or open to leaving Michigan. And what's more troubling, frankly, is that those young people who are more highly educated, with a bachelor's degree or even an advanced degree, are the ones that are more likely to leave the state. And we've got to be concerned about that. I mean, the 21st century is a knowledge-based economy, and if we lose our best knowledge workers to other states like California and Texas, or Chicago and Illinois, that's going to be a real competitive disadvantage for Michigan's business and Michigan's economy going forward.
Well, Sandy Baruah, President and CEO of the Detroit Regional Chamber, we appreciate you joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me tonight.